talking about the Italian-themed horror Blood Bags. Now this one is directed by Emiliano Ranzani, who also co-wrote this, and this is actually his feature film directorial debut. He's done a few short films before and has primarily worked as an editor, and this one stars Makenna Guyler as Tracy. Now this is our kind of POV character who is an American student studying in Italy. She wants to become a photographer, so she talks her friend into kind of breaking into this kind of like gothic looking mansion to take some photographs. Unbeknownst to her, this mansion may well not actually be abandoned, and there may be some type of being living in here who feasts off the blood of anyone who he can get its hands on, and there may well be a somewhat of a larger conspiracy in relation to that. Other characters are introduced. We have a couple of police officers kind of introduced kind of midway through the film, and in the form of an unexpected ally as well. So what do we think of Blood Bags? Fans of Italian cinema will be pleased, I feel, because this one does homage kind of like Italian kind of horror of the past. At the beginning of the movie, we were introduced to a couple of friends who I thought were going to have a bigger part, but they actually don't. And there's obviously one of them who is clearly a meant to be the kind of the fanboy of old school Italian horror. So that was quite a nice little kind of shout out there, talking about zombie movies and the like. The actual photography of this movie, as you'd expect, being primarily obviously an Italian-based production, it features some fantastic kind of architecture and kind of like location, set design, things like that. So it's a beautiful looking film, and the director, primarily working as an editor, obviously has a mind for the kind of the more technical. So this movie certainly has a proficient and professional kind of feel to it, and is very well kind of edited and cut and shot and everything like that. And I feel this is because this director obviously come from a more of a technical background. It certainly kind of looks that. I've got to say, I thought the acting was all pretty good. Everyone here does a pretty good job in their roles. Now the kind of the dialogue here is split between Italian and English. Now our main character Tracy is actually an American student who doesn't speak Italian, so people speak to her in English. But when there is other characters, obviously two Italians speaking, they obviously speak in the native Italian language, which I massively appreciate, because it always bugs me when you'll have a movie set in a foreign country and you'll have two native people speaking in English, and they'll clearly won't be. So I appreciated that small but important attention to kind of the detail there. I also thought the movie did a quite good job here of kind of of never really focusing on one central character. Now Tracy is our main protagonist ultimately, but the movie does spend quite a lot of time, in particular with our two kind of police officers, who almost take over a kind of an extended kind of bunch of sequences within the movie, and I almost felt like it's going to kind of more be at their point of view to a certain degree. So I kind of quite like that. It kind of moves away from who this person will definitely be the last one surviving, and who knows what will happen. The makeup effects here are excellent. I feel our antagonist, which I kind of won't spoil for you, looks very, very kind of creepy, and they actually almost managed to make you feel somewhat sympathetic. I'm not going to tell you why that is, but there is a kind of at least an attempt to make him feel somewhat of a kind of a sympathetic character. And there are also a couple of dream sequences which I feel, although they don't really make a lot of sense in context of the movie, do look kind of visually kind of very, very interesting, and I feel are classic kind of Italian kind of cinema. So maybe what doesn't work here. The story is relatively slight, if we're being honest, and we feel that there's not really much more than the kind of it pretends itself. A couple of kids go into a kind of a house, and they are menaced by some sort of threat, and we have a couple of peripheral characters kind of going in there as well. It doesn't really get a lot deeper than that. There is an attempt to have a little bit of backstory towards our kind of antagonist, and maybe seeing other people who are involved, but it's relatively kind of thin on that mark. I think the main thing for me, if I had to critique this movie, maybe the pacing is a little slow for some people, because I feel the story is relatively slight. There are sequences here that are very drawn out, and I feel may just kind of be a little bit kind of on the slow pace for some people. Maybe it's kind of a more of a European thing if we're used to watching lots of kind of like American kind of style horror movies, this one kind of goes at its own speed, which may not be a problem for some, but I feel there may be the odd viewer here who may find it a little bit on the slow side. For me, the biggest issue I had with this is probably the ending and this dream sequence, which just seemed to have no relevance in the story whatsoever. I'm not going to go too into it because I do not want to kind of spoil it for anyone. But the dream sequence just seemed to me to have an excuse to have some weird and kind of like wacky sequences, but it really served no purpose, and it wasn't like a kind of like a portent for things to come or anything like that. It just was like, yeah, let's have this kind of weird dream sequence, and then it kind of like, without giving anything away, I think the ending as well, I feel will be a little bit of a kind of a letdown. Again, I don't want to spoil it for you. I feel like I want to, but I'm not going to. But I don't think the ending left on the kind of the best possible note. I feel it's a little bit of a kind of a cop-out, to be honest. But this movie is a scrumptious film to look at. I feel it's, on a technical side, it's very well done. I actually really enjoyed the characters of the police, probably more so than our central protagonist, if I'm honest with you, who comes across as ultimately it's her fault that people are ending up getting killed. So I feel a little bit kind of a struggle to kind of sympathise with her, because it's her decision to break into the house, and she kind of leaves her friend at one point, and I feel she's not particularly a sympathetic character. But I really enjoyed the police, these two police officers that turned up. So that they were quite good, and we almost have a little bit of a mini investigation. It turned into a little bit of a mini investigation at one point, and I thought they were played really well, and almost a little bit of a, sometimes you'll get kind of like characters turn up halfway through the movie who are, they're just dumb cannon fodder, but these two were a little bit more kind of fleshed out, had a little bit more to do, and kind of acted a bit more professional, I feel, than a lot of kind of like police are kind of portrayed in kind of horror films, and just kind of like there to kind of rack up a body count. So I appreciated the kind of the time spent on them, and almost wish the movie did kind of like focus more on them rather than our American central character who ends up becoming a little bit unlikable. Not too much, but just a little bit unlikable. Overall, I'll give this movie a 6 out of 10. I don't think it's going to blow anyone's socks off necessarily, but it's a competently made film with decent special effects, an okay story, albeit nothing that's going to kind of like blow your socks off. 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.